So where do we go from here? Let's ask former U.S. Ambassador to NATO, Kurt Volker. Thank you for joining us on this Saturday morning. We greatly appreciate it. It's pretty clear that the situation continues to escalate right now. The Israeli military striking all across Iran, from their nuclear sites to their ballistic missile sites, military sites to individuals, to going after commanders and scientists. Your thoughts on what's been struck and this ongoing force moving forward, really softening things, if you will, as they continue to hit their targets?
Yeah. Well, I think we have to look at this in a couple of phases here. Before all this started in the last 10 days or so, Iran was very, very close to the ability to produce a nuclear bomb and possibly even connect that to a missile to be able to deliver it. So that has already been set back dramatically. It's going to take them a long time to reconstitute any kind of nuclear weapons capability. Now what the Israelis are doing is dramatically weakening the rest of the Iranian military forces. Because remember, they pose a regional threat. They've supported their proxies like Hezbollah and Hamas and the Houthis over time. So this is an effort to really weaken the Iranian power structures so that they present less of a threat in the future. There's nothing in this yet that prevents Iran from regrouping, even if it takes a few years. But Israel is really trying to impose as much penalty on Iran as possible, to set it back as long as possible, and to cause the regime to think, is it really worth going through billions of dollars of expenses again, only to have Israel destroy it again if they get close?
Yeah, when we talk about specifically the nuclear sites that have been hit, they've been talking the Iraq heavy water reactor and the Markazi process. There are a great number of different sites that have been struck related to their attempts to gain this technology. When you're talking about years potentially to regroup, what does it mean for the country right now, as this is an effort to discourage them from continuing this direction?
Right. Well, as you know, we have a radicalized Islamist regime in Iran, theocracy. They run a very harsh regime vis-a-vis the Iranian people. And there have been protests over decades by the Iranian people against the nature of the regime there. But they have run the country with an iron grip. What Israel is doing is loosening that grip a little bit because they are weakening the power structures of that government. Now, it is too early to say whether this creates an opening for the Iranian people to get control of their own government. But that is clearly something in the back of people's minds, that the Iranian regime is looking a lot less powerful than it looked a few weeks ago. And I think that is something that Israel is hoping for, and perhaps even the U.S. is keeping an eye on at this stage.
Yeah, I think you're raising a great point there. Mike Tobin was just reporting, showing some of the protesting in the streets that is occurring, anti-Israel protesting. But part of the goal also is to go after this internal security apparatus and to give the Iranian people the power to communicate with the world, to use the internet, to rise up if they so choose. Do you see that beginning?
We haven't seen it yet. I think there's a couple of factors here. One of them, the regime is, seriously trying to keep order and keep control in society. Those demonstrations that we saw the footage of, those were orchestrated by the regime itself. They're not spontaneous, and they're not anything that reflects the overall will of the people. But at the same time, there is a rally around the flag effect for any country. If they're being attacked, they tend to want those attacks to stop. They tend to support any government that's going to defend them. So we see a bit of that as well. But there's nothing that's going to cause these young Iranians, and it's a very young population, to believe that the theocracy in Iran is really the right leadership for them. So we are not seeing it yet, but I think, as you say, weakening the security apparatus and weakening the image of an indestructible Iranian state, that is quite important psychologically.
And the final question, the president heading back to the White House, he'll be talking about and weighing this decision that he said. He said it's a 2-week time frame. The United States reportedly considering potential strikes on the Fordo nuclear site. Your thoughts?
Well, as I look at President Trump, it seems to me that he really doesn't want to use U.S. military force. He doesn't want to get the U.S. involved in another war anywhere in the world. But he also, I think, sees the situation that has developed as a result of Israel's preemptive strikes. This is now a significant potential weakening of the regime, an opportunity to set back Iran's nuclear weapons program by many years if we really go after that deep underground Fordo facility. So I think he is really weighing the opportunity versus his instincts as to not to get involved.
All right, Kurt Volker, thank you very much for joining us and bringing us your expertise on this Saturday morning. Really appreciate it.
Been my pleasure. Thank you.
I'm Steve Doocy.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.